I found that definitely relative to the other lifts, less is more for the deadlift.
What have you found with the peaking process?
Yeah, the peaking process is interesting. There's definitely some generalities that I have found from coaching a lot of athletes over the years, but then there are also pretty big individual differences. So as a general rule, and again, my experience is almost entirely restricted to raw powerlifting. So that probably matters. I have found that lighter weight classes, and I say that instead of what I might have said when I was younger, like women versus men, because now I've worked with 66, 74 kilo men, and they operate in a similar way. Maybe it's because of the absolute load relative to their body, or something else. I don't know, but it's a pretty consistent thing I've seen when I'm working with like middleweights or lightweights equivalent lifters, that you can push that very close to competition. And if you don't, they can actually detrain a little bit and you won't be as fresh of a state. However, if you're working with a 105 kilo male, a 120 kilo male, a super heavyweight, which I have limited but some experience with, it definitely seems more like the era of what I heard from super training, or like basically going all the way back to the greats of the 90s, the 80s of, I don't do my last heavy deadlift until I'm 2 weeks out or 1 week out. And I found that definitely relative to the other lifts, less is more for the deadlift. So in the general volume, in raw powerlifting, generally I find the highest frequency and the highest volumes are going to come in the form of bench press, and then squat after that, and then deadlift after that. And those are the generalities, right? But the amount of individual differences are pretty wild, So there are always exceptions to rules, but the general thing I find is that those tend to be kind of just fixed in place relative to one another for the average lifter in these different classes at a high level. But then how you program really does change things as well.